Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Pranaya Karuna Gana Ganatam Sham Sharadava Nalalida Loka Tranaya Karuna Gana Ganata Prapta Sakalyana Punanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Punanavasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam 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 Mahaprabhu ki Tananita Gita Vaditramadhyam Manasurasena Mahaprabhu ki Ananita Gita Vaditramadhyam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Vaju Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Romanchakam Pasru Taranga Vaju Vande Gurashi Shri Vigrahara Dana Nityanana Shingaratanama Niramarjanado Shri Vigrahara Dana Juktasya Bhaktamsa Niyunjatopi Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Hari Bhakta Sangam Chaturvidhashi Bhagavat Prasada Satana Truptan Kridvaiva Trupte Bhajato Shadeva Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Shiradhikama Gavayara Para Madhura Lila Gunarupanamna Shiradhikama Para Pratikshana Swa Dhanalalupasya Vande Gurashi Charanaravindam Ne kunjayo rati kelisidai Jayari bhiri juktir apekshaniya Ne kunjayo rati kelisidai Jayari bhiri juktir Tatrati daksha ati balavasya Vande Gora Shri Charanarvindam Ativalapasya Sakshadharitena Shamasta Shashri Ruktastatthava Gataiva Sadhavi Sakshadharitena Shashri Kintu Praborja Priya Eva Tasya Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Vande Gurashi Yasya Prasada Bhagavat Prasada Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Yasya Prasadam Yasya Prasadam Nagati Kutapi Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Dayam Stuvam Yasatrin Sandhyam Dayam Stuvam Tasya Yasatrin Sandhyam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Vande Gurashi Charanarvindam Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nitina Mine Nama Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Namaste Sarasvate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachattade Shatarine Namaste Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunavadi Pachattadishata Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Krishna Chaitanya Nityananda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Bo. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Rama Hare Rama Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare 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 Ram Hare Hare Namah Krishna Jadavaye Namah Jadavaye Madhavaya Kesavaya Namah Gopal Govindaram Shimadhusudan Giridhari Gopinath Madana Mohan Shri Chaitanya Nityananda Shri Advaita Sita Hari Guru Vaishnava Bhagavata Gita Shri Rupa Sanatan Bhatta Raguna Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Dasaraguna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare Hare Shri Radha Nila Madhava Radha Nila Madhava Radhe Jaya Jagannath Jayo Baladeva Jayo Subhadrama Jayo Sudarshan Chakra Jaya Sitaram Jaya Lakshman Hanuman Nitai Gaur Haribo Nitai Gaur Haribo Gora Pramanande Hari Hari Bo Jai Vishwapara Paramsa Prabhajakacharya Suttara Sarashishimat Divine Grace Abhakarana Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Pratishta Vividi Samstapakacharya Vaishnav Sramani Parita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Shri Gaurya Guru Varga Patiti Udhari Ki Jai Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath Shri Jiva Gopala Bhatta Das Guna Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai नामाचार्य श्रील हरिदास ठाकुर जी की जय अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवसरि गौर भक्त वृंद की जय। जय परम दयाल श्री नित्यानंद प्रभु की जय। जय प्रभु नाम संकीर्तनिक जनक प्रेम पुरुषोत्तम श्री सच्चिनंदन श्रीमन गौरंग श्री चैतन्य महाप्रभु गौर हरि मावरण अवतार की जय। गोलोकेर प्रमधान हरि नाम संकीर्तन जय की जय। जुग धर्म हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय। बृहद मृदंग ट्रेंस नैतुल बुक डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन सेव की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोप गोपीनाथ राधा कुंज श्याम कुंज गिरिराज गोवर्धन की जय। श्री ब्रज वृंदावन मथुरा धाम की जय। दिलोशिव श्री श्री राधा नील माधव की जय। श्री श्री मायापुर नवद्वीप एक चक्रधाम की जय। परम करुण श्री गौर निताय की जय। श्री पुरुषोत्तम क्षेत्र जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। श्री श्री जगन्नाथ स्वामी बलदेव प्रभु सुभद्रा देवी सुदर्शन चक्र भगवान की जय। सीताराम लक्ष्मण भक्त हनुमान जी की जय। भक्ति सर्व विघ्न विनाशन कनु सिंह भगवान की जय। जगंगा माय जमुना माय की जय। तुलसी महारानी वृंद देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्री मथुरा धारानी की जय। श्यामवेद भक्त वृंद की जय। निताय गौर हरि परमानंदे हरि बोल। All glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories to the assembly bodies, all glories, all glories, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga Hari Bo.
नमस्ते नरसिंहाय नमस्ते नरसिंहाय प्रहलाद लाद दायिने हिरण्यकशिपुर्वक्षः टङ्कानखालये इतो नरसिंह परतो नरसिंह यतो यतो यामि ततो नरसिंह बाहिर नरसिंह हृदय नरसिंह नरसिंह मदें शरणं प्रपदे तव करकमलवरे नखा अद्भुत शृङ्गां दलिता हिरण्यकशिपो तनुभृङ्गा केशवधृता नरहरिरूप जय जगदीश हरे 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 जय नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव नरसिंहदेव जय नरसिंहदेव जय नर हरे जय नर हरे नर हरे जय नर हरे जय प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रहलाद महाराज जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद प्रभुपद श्रील प्रभुपद निताय गौर हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल निताय गौर हरि बोल नृसिंहदेव भगवान की जय प्रहलाद महाराज की जय जय श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय
विष्णु भक्ति प्रदिने शतवताय नमः वृंदाई तुलसी बाई सत्य विष्णु भक्ति प्रदिने शतवताय वृंदाय तुलसी देवाय प्रिय के सदा सत्या विष्णु भक्ति प्रदिदेवी सतवताय जय श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी
कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः। नमो नमः तुलसी कृष्णा प्रेयसी नमो नमः। राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्णा सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
राधा कृष्ण सेवा पावो ए अभिलाषी।
जे तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूरन हो।
तुम्हारा शरण लो तारा वंचा पूरन हो।
कृपा कोरी कोरो तारे वृंदावन वासी। मोराए अभिलाष विलास कुंज दियो वास। नयने हरिबो सदा जुगल रूपरासी। एई निवेदन धारो साखीर अनुगाता कोरो। सेवा अधिकारा दिए कोरो निज दासी। दीना कृष्ण दासे कोए न मोरा होए। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा न भासी। श्री राधा गोविंदा प्रेमे सदा न भासी। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रनाशन्ति प्रदक्षिण पदे पदे। यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रनाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे यानि कानि च पापानि ब्रह्माहत्यादिकानि च तानि तानि प्रनाशन्ति प्रदक्षिणा पदे पदे हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे 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 कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया तुलसी महारानी जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी जया वृंदा देवी नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल हरि बोल हरि बोल नित्याय गौरा हरि बोल। श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय।
श्रीमती तुलसी महारानी वृंदा देवी की जय। Oh Tulsi, beloved Krishna, I bow before you again and again. Mighty Zay to obtain the service of Shri Radha and Krishna. Whoever takes shelter of you, his wishes fulfilled. Bestow your mercy upon him, you make him a resident of Vrindavana. My desire is that you also give me a residence, pleasure groves of Shri Vrindavan Dham. Thus within my vision, I'll always be wholly beautiful. That's time to Radha and Krishna. I beg you to make me a follower carry themselves of Raj. Please give me the privilege of devotional service and make me on net 7. This very fallen and long serving Krishna praise. Yeah, always similar. Shishradhan Govinda Shri Mati Tulsi Naran Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Shri Krishna Ki Jai Chaitanya Kripaya tava pada pankaja Stitaduli sadrisham vichintaya Nayanam galarashrudharaya Vadanam gadagadharudaya gira Pulakarinchitam bapu kada Tavanam grahane bhavisati Jugaitam Adarshanan manmahatam karotuva Yata tatava vidadatulam poto Matpranatastu sa evana paru Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Sikhyastakam Ki Jai Namo Mahavarannaya Krishna Prema Pradaya Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namani Gaura Tvishe Glory to the Shri Krishna Sankirtana, which cleanses the heart of the dust accumulated for years and extinguishes the fiery condition of life of repeated birth and death. This Sankirtan moment is the prime benediction for humanity at large, because it spreads the rays, the benediction moon. It is the life of all transcendental knowledge. It increases the ocean of transcendental bliss and enables us to fully taste the nectar for which always anxious. O my Lord, your holy name alone can render all benediction to living beings, and thus we have hundreds and millions of names like Krishna and Govind. In these transcendental names you have invested all transcendental energies. There are no hard and fast rules for chanting these names. O my Lord, out of kindness, you enable us to easily approach you by holy names, but I'm so unfortunate I have no attraction for them. Once you chant the holy name of the Lord in a humble state of mind, thinking oneself lower than straw in the street, one should be more tolerant than a tree, devoid of all sense of false prestige, and should be ready to offer all respect to others. In such state of mind, one can chant the holy name of the Lord constantly. O Almighty Lord, I have no desire to accumulate wealth, nor do I desire beautiful women, nor do I want any number of followers. I only want your cause of devotion service birth after birth. O son of Maharajananda Krishna, I am your eternal servitor, yet somehow rather I have fallen in the ocean of birth and death. Please pick me up from this ocean of death and place me as one of the atoms at your lotus feet. O my Lord, when will my eyes be decorated with tears of love, flowing constantly when I chant your holy name? Will my voice choke up, and will the hairs of my body stand on end with the recitation of your name? Oh Govinda, feeling your separation, I'm considering a moment to be like 12 years or more. Tears are flowing from my eyes like torrents of rain, and I feel all vacant in the world in your absence. I know no one but Krishna as my Lord, and he should remain so. Even if he handles me roughly by his embrace, or makes me broken-hearted by not being present before me, he is completely free to do anything and everything, for he is always my worshipful Lord, unconditionally. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Siksha-stakam ki jai. There are 10 offenses in the matter of chanting the holy name of the Lord that should be avoided. They are as follows. 1. Blaspheming devotees who dedicate life for propagating over the name of the Lord. 2. To consider names of the demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma to be equal to or independent of the name Lord Vishnu. 3. To disobey the orders of the spiritual master. 4. To blaspheme the Vedic literature or literatures and pursuits of Vedic version. 5. To consider the glories of chanting Hare Krishna to be imagination. 6. To give some interpretations on the holy name of the Lord. 7. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord. 8. To consider the chanting of Hare Krishna as one of the auspicious ritualistic activities which are from the Vedas as fruit of activities of karma kanda. 9. To instruct the faithless person about the glories of holy name. And 10. To not have complete faith in chanting holy names and to maintain material attachments even after understanding so many instructions in this matter. It is also an offense to be inattentive while chanting. Every devotee who claims to be a Vaishnava must carefully guard against these 10 offenses in order to quickly achieve the desired success. Krishna Prema. Now let's offer a most humble obeisance unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord. They are just like desired trees that can fulfill the desires of everyone, and they are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa tarabhyasya kripasindubhyebhya patitanam pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Vaishnava Thakur ki jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Srimati Bhakti Vinata Swamrita Namani. Namaste Saraswati Devi Guru Rani Vacharani Devi Sesa Sunyavadi Paskati Rastani. Shri Guru Pranama Prayers ki jai. Om Aganyati Mirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manubhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Bandeham Shri Guru Shri Jatahab Kamalan Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahaguna Ragunatan Vitam Tam Sajivam Saidvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahaguna Lalita Shri Vishaka Nivitam Sa Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimati Bhakti Vedanta Swamini Tinamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya Desatarine Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prestaya Bhutali Shrimate Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Tinamini Shivasavanavi Devi Dayitaya Kripabdaye Krishna Sambandha Vigyana Dayane Prabhave Namaha Madhur Ujjvala Premadya Shri Rupanuga Bhakti Da Shri Gora Karuna Shakti Vigrahaya Namostate Namaste Gauravani Shri Murtaye Dinatarine Rupanuga Virudapa Apasiddhanta Dvantaharine Namo Gora Kishwaraya Sakshat Vairagya Murtaye Mitvalambara Sambodhe Padambujayate Namaha Namo Bhakti Vinodaya Sachitanandanamine Gora Shakti Sarupaya Rupanuga Varayate Gora Vir Bhava Bhumestvam Nirdesta Sajjana Priya Vaishnava Sarvabhuma Shri Jagannatayate Namaha Vanchakalpatarabhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate
Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namne Gaurachase Namaha Panchatattvatmakam Krishnam Bhakta Rupa Swarupakam Bhaktavataram Bhaktakam Namami Bhakta Saktikam. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostate Jayatam Surator Bhangur Mama Mandamate Gati Matsarvasva Padambojo Radha Madana Mohano Divyadvindaranya Kalpradumadaha Shimad Ratnagara Simhasanastito Shimad Radha Shilagovinda Devo Prastali Bihi Sevyamano Smarami Shiman Rasa Rasarambi Vamsevata Tatastita Karsan Venuswanir Gopir Gopinatakstriyestrana Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanustute Devi Pralamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavindam Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Guru Pranama prayers ki jai. Shri Brahma Samhita ki jai. Ishwara Parama Krishna Sachitananda Vigraha Anadirade Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Chintamani Prakadasatma Sukalpa Riksha Laksa Vrite Susurabhir Abhipaliantam Lakshmi Sahasra Satasambrahma Sevyamanam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Venam Kvanantam Aravinda Dalayataksam Barhavatam Samasitam Buddha Sundarangam Kandarpa Koti Kamaniya Vishesha Sobam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Alola Chandrakala Sadvanamalya Vamsi Ratnam Gadam Pranayakeli Kalavilasam Shamam Tribanga Lalita Niyata Prakasam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Angani Yasya Sakalendriya Vrittimanti Pasyanti Panti Kalyanti Chiram Jaganti Ananda Chinmaya Sadujwala Vigrahasya Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Advaitam Achyutam Anadim Ananta Rupam Adyam Purana Purusham Navayovanam Cha Vede Sudurlabham Adurlabham Atma Bhakto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Pantastakoti Satavatsara Sampragamyo Vayoratapi Manaso Muni Pungamanam Sobhyasti Yat Prapadasimya Vichintya Tattve Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ekopya Sora Chayatam Jagadanda Kote Yas Chakti Rasti Jagadanda Chayayadanta Antanta Rasta Paramanu Chayanta Rastam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yad Bhava Bhavita Diyo Manajasta Taiva Sampraptya Rupa Mahima Sanayanubhusa Subtaryam Eva Nikama Pratitaistuvanti Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasapati Bhavitabhis Tabirya Eva Nijarupa Tayakalabi Goloka Eva Nivasata Kilatma Bhuto Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Premanjana Charita Bhakti Vilochanena Santaksadeva Hidayesu Vilokayanti Yam Shama Sundaram Achintya Gunaswarupam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ramadi Murti Sukala Niyamena Tisthana Navataram Akarod Bhuvanesu Kintu Krishna Swayam Samabhavat Paramam Pumam Yo Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasya Prabha Prabhavato Jagananda Koti Koti Swaseshu Vasudadi Vibhuti Binam Tad Brahma Niskalam Anantam Asesha Bhutam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Maya Hiyasya Jagadanda Satani Sute Jaigun Yatad Vishaya Veda Vitayamanam Sattva Valambi Parasatvam Visuddha Sattvam Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Ananda Chinmaya Rasatmataya Manastru Ya Praninam Pratifulam Smaratam Ubedya Lilayatena Bhuvanani Jaya Yajasram Govindam Adipurisham Tamaham Bhajami Goloka namni nijadamni tale chatasya devi mahesu haridama sute sutesu te te prabhava nichaya vitascha yena govinda madi purisham tamaham bhajami shrististati pralaya sadhava saktireka chayeva yasya bhuvanani vivarti durga ichanu rupam api yasya chachestate sa govinda madi purisham tamaham bhajami shiram yanta dadi vikara vichesa yoga sanjaya te nahitata pritakasti hetu yasambhutam apitata samapaiti karyat govinda madi purisham tamaham bhajami deeparcharevi hitasantanam adhyatevya deepayate vivita hetu samanu dharma yastadrigeva hicha vishnu taya vibhati Golok Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yakarna Narna Vajale Bhajatisma Yoga Nidram Mananta Jagadanda Saroma Kupa Adhara Shaktim Avalambya Paramsva Murtim Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yasyaika Nisvasitakala Matavalambya Jivanti Loma Vilaja Jagadanda Nata Vishnur Mahansahi Yasya Kala Vishesho Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Basman Yatasma Sakalesu Nijesu Teja Swiyam Kiyat Prakatayat Apitadvatatra Brahmaya Esa Jagadanda Vidana Karta Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yat Pada Palava Yugam Vinidaya Kumbha Dwande Pranama Samayesa Kanadi Raja Vegnan Vihanta Malamasya Jagatra Yasya Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Agnir Mahiga Ganama Bumarudisascha Kalas Tatatma Manasiti Jagatrayani Yasmad Bhavanti Vibhavanti Visanti Yamcha Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yaschaksuresa Savita Sakala Grahanam Raja Samasta Sudamurti Resesa Teja Yasya Gaya Brahmati Sambrita Kala Chakro Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Dharmo Tapapa Nichaya Suteyastapam Se Brahmadi Kita Patagava Deyasta Jiva Yadata Matra Vibhava Prakata Prabhava Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yastrindra Gopa Matavendra Mahosva Karma Bandhanu Rupa Falabhaja Namatano Karmani Nirdahati Kintu Jabhakti Bhajam Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Yam Krodha Kama Sahaja Pranadi Bitti Badsalya Moha Guru Gaurav Sevya Bhavai Sanchintya Tasya Sadvisimtana Mapurete Govinda Madi Purisham Tamaham Bhajami Sriya Kanta Kanta Parama Purisha Kalpataravo Drumabha Mischintamani Ganama Itoyam Amritam Kataganam Natyam Gamanam Apivam Sipriyasaki Chidanandam Jyoti Parama Pitada Swadyam Apicha Sayatra Siradi Bhiswavati Sirabi Bhyasta Suman Nimesa Ardakya Vavrajati Nahiya Tripisamaya Bhajay Svitadvipam Tamaham Iha Golokamityam Vidantaste Santakshati Viralacha Rakatipaye Ishvara Paramakrishna Sachitananda Vigraha Nadiradi Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam Shri Brahma Samhita Ki Jai Shri Guru Vastaka Ki Jai. The spiritual master is receiving benediction from the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master delivers the materially afflicted world by extinguishing the blazing fire of material existence. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is an ocean of auspicious qualities. Chanting the holy name, dancing in ecstasy, singing and playing musical instruments, the spiritual master is always gladdened by the Sankirtan movement of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because he is relishing the mellows of pure devotion within his mind, sometimes his hair stands on end, he feels quivering in his body, and tears flow from his eyes like waves. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always engaged in the temple worship of Shri Radha and Krishna. He also engages his disciples in such worship. They dress the deities in beautiful clothes and ornaments, clean their temple, and perform other similar worship of the Lord. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always offering Krishna 4 kinds of delicious food, analyzes that which is licked, chewed, drunk, and sucked. When the spiritual master sees that the devotees are satisfied by eating Bhagavad Prasada, he is satisfied. I offer my respectful obeisance to the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is always eager to hear and chant about the unlimited conjugal pastimes of Radhika and Madhava and their qualities, names, and forms. The spiritual master aspires to relish these at every moment. I I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is very dear because he is expert at assisting the gopis who at different times make different tasteful arrangements for the perfection of Radha and Krishna's conjugal loving affairs within the groves of Vrindavana. I offer my most humble obeisances unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master. The spiritual master is to be honored as much as the Supreme Lord because he's the most confidential servant to the Lord. This is acknowledged in all revealed scriptures and followed by all authorities. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of such a spiritual master who is a bona fide representative of Shri Hare Krishna. By the mercy of the spiritual master, one receives the benediction of Krishna. Without the grace of the spiritual master, one cannot make any advancement. Therefore, I should always remember and praise the spiritual master at least 3 times a day. I should offer my respectful obeisance unto the lotus feet of my spiritual master. Shri Guru Vastika prayers, Ki Jai, Guru Premanandi, Hari Bol. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 10, again, verse or text 45. Nasya karmani janmado Parasyanu vidiyate Kachitva pratisedartam Mayaya rupitam hitat. Na, never, asya, of the creation, karmani, in the matter of, janma ado, creation and destruction, parasya, of the supreme, anavidyate, it is so described, kartritva, engineering, pratiseda, artam, counteract, mayaya, by the external energy, aropitam, is manifested, he, for, tat, the creator. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. There is no direct engineering by the Lord for the creation and destruction of the material world. What is described in the Vedas about his direct interference is simply to counteract the idea that material nature is the creator. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The Vedic direction for the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world is this. Yatava imani bhutani jayante. Yena jatani jivanti yat prayantyabi samvishanti. That is, everything is created by Brahman. After creation, everything is maintained by Brahman. And after annihilation, everything is conserved in Brahman. Gross materialists, without any knowledge of Brahman, Paramatma, or Bhagavan, conclude material nature to be the ultimate cause of the material manifestation, and the modern scientist also shares this view that the material nature is the ultimate cause of all manifestations of the material world. This view is refuted by all Vedic literature. The Vedanta philosophy mentions that Brahman is the fountainhead of all creation, maintenance, and destruction, and Srimad Bhagavatam, the natural commentation on the Vedanta philosophy, says Janmadasya yato nivyad itarartas chartes avigya swarad, etc. Srimad Bhagavatam 1.1.1. Inert matter is undoubtedly energy with potential to interact, but it has no initiative of its own. Srimad Bhagavatam therefore comments on the aphorism Janmadasya by saying Abhigya and Swarad, that is, the Supreme Brahman is not inert matter, but he is supreme consciousness and is independent. Therefore, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and description of the material world. Superficially, material nature appears to be the cause of action. Therefore, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. Superficially, material nature appears to be the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction. But material nature is set into motion for creation by the Supreme Conscious Being, the personality of Godhead. He is the background of all creation, maintenance, and destruction, and this is confirmed in the Bhagavad Gita 9.10. Maya dakshina pakriti suyatesha characharan hetunanenu konteya jagat viparivartate. The material nature is one of the energies of the Lord, and she can work under the direction of the Lord, adyakshena. When the Lord throws his transcendental glance over the material nature, then only can the material nature act as a father contacts the mother, who is then able to conceive a child. So this is a very controversial point. Why? Well, we would have to have a little bit of background of the mundane scientist. It goes all the way back to Aristotle, who 2,500 years ago seemed to be a very intelligent person, but actually he wasn't. Now, he's been the basis of modern scientific experimentation. He's like the first, let's say, highly organized, highly philosophical, highly technical, let's say, thinker and scientist. But we're going to find out that he was far off the mark. So Aristotle has developed a way of understanding matter and what is happening in this world. So he has come up with 4 different causes of matter. Now, you say these Greeks were very smart people in some ways. They borrowed most of what they knew from the Vedas, but because they're separated from the Vedas, the Greeks are they were engendered by one of the sons of a great Vedic authority or a Vedic personality, who had 5 different sons. So one of his sons was the let's say the origin of the Kurus, one was of the Yadus, one was of the Mongolians, one was of the like Turks. Turks and Mongolians are the same. And one is of the Greeks. And so the Greeks are Vedic, let's say, origin, but who separated from the Vedas. So they're called Malechas. And the Turk Mongolians are also engendered by, or came about from the Vedic tradition. And they're all sons of Yayati. But they are considered to be Yavanas. Now, what's the difference in a Malecha and a Yavana? Not too much difference. They're both deviants from the Vedic tradition. The Malechas and Yavanas are both meat eaters. The Yavanas are more vicious, in a sense. They're more brutal. Greeks are too, to a sense, a certain sense, but the Yavanas are extremely brutal. So the Greeks became very philosophical, and they had some so-called great thinkers that established a lot of the foundation of Western civilization. So Aristotle comes up with 4 causes there's an example of a table. So the first cause of the table is called the formal cause, because it is not the formal cause. The first cause is a material cause. What is the material cause of the table? It's wood. The second cause is called the formal cause, because there's a design. Someone designs what the table is going to look like. The third cause is the efficient cause. And that's the carpenter and the carpentry that puts the wood together into the form of a table, according to the design and according to and the, with the matter, which is wood. Then the fourth cause, or the final cause, is the purpose. It's for dining. You put things on the table, food, and you sit down and you eat. So you notice, there's no mention of Krishna or God. So Aristotle was actually the father of modern atheism. And not only him, but he's the most, let's say, philosophical. There was atheism before Aristotle, but he put it on philosophical basis, right? So now let's compare what Aristotle says to what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. So Krishna says there are 5 factors for every action. Though before we say that, there's another interesting point, and that is, what do the modern scientists say? The modern scientists, starting with Francis Bacon in the 1605, he wrote a book, and in that he said, look, there's 2 things. There's matter and motion. This is what we have to deal with when we're talking about causes. Well, so and that's what scientists are dealing with today, is matter and motion. Now let's see what Krishna says. Krishna says that adhisthanam yata tata karta karanam cha pritakvidam. So adhisthanam means the place, which means the body. So the body is the first material cause. And then it's the person, karta, the doer. It's the second material cause. And then the senses, which are the instruments to do things. And then it's the endeavor, it's the work that's being done. And finally, it's Krishna, the supreme consciousness, supreme personality of Godhead. So we can see this is a fundamental question, is how and why things happen in the material world. And you see how Aristotle was basically an atheist, so he doesn't mention Krishna at all. And then you come to the modern scientists, beginning with Francis Bacon, who was a Britisher. They also just eliminate God completely and just talk about matter and motion. But the devotees always depend on Krishna's words, and Krishna's words are factual. So now, let's go to another issue, but with this in mind, and that is, Prabhupada is explaining here in a very brilliant way by quoting the verse, Maya Dakshina Prakriti Suyate Characharam, which means, we read that verse and the purport yesterday, where Krishna says, Maya Dakshina Prakriti, he is the source of everything, and he's controlling everything. Maya Dakshina Prakriti, the material nature, which is one of my energies, is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, producing all moving and non-moving beings under its rule. This manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. So this is a very comprehensive verse, and it's clear that Krishna is overseeing, managing the source of the material nature. Right? And it's only one of his energies. Right? He's also the source of the spiritual world, and he's the source of the material world. And in the material world, he creates, he maintains, and he destructs. So Prabhupada says, he quotes Srimad Bhagavatam in this purport. He says, inert matter is undoubtedly energy with potential to interact. So inert matter, matter that is not moving, it has potential energy. Okay, what is potential energy? There's potential energy and there's kinetic energy. Potential energy means like fire is in wood, but you don't see it. Right? You would have to add other fire to it to bring out the fire in the wood. Or fire is in a rock on top of a mountain. I'm sorry. Energy is in the potential energy is in a rock on top of a mountain, because if that rock gets loose, it'll start falling, and then it manifests as energy, as kinetic energy, moving. The movement is kinetic. And then, so we see there's potential energy and there's kinetic energy. Potential energy is due to the position of something or the inherent energy within something that is dormant. But if it's activated, it'll come out. It's just like gasoline. It's very, very combustible. You should always be careful with gasoline, because not only is it combustible, it can also explode. Right? The diesel burns slower than gasoline, so it's a little bit less dangerous. Gasoline is extremely dangerous, right? And they both have a lot of potential energy, but they don't. You don't see this, or you don't see the action of that potential energy unless there's some catalyst, unless there's something that moves it. Okay, what is that something? Well, they sort of dance around the question, Aristotle, Bacon, modern scientists, because basically they reject the existence of God. Anyone more intelligent than them, they reject. And Krishna is the supreme intelligence. So here it says, Srimad Bhagavatam therefore comments on the aphorism Janmadasya by saying Avidya Swarat. So Krishna is Avidya. He's the supreme consciousness. He's the possessor of all knowledge. And he's Swarat. He's completely independent. He doesn't need anything or anyone else to create. He's totally independent. So therefore, the Supreme Brahman cannot be inert matter, because the inert matter is not supremely conscious, and it is not independent. So, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world, because inert matter is inert. It doesn't move unless something pushes it. So Krishna is the original pusher. So then Prabhupada says, therefore, inert matter cannot be the ultimate cause of the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world. Superficially, material nature appears to be the cause of creation. It appears to be like it, just like in places where they grow a lot of rice, like, for example, in Thailand, and other places like that, India, of course, they grow a lot of rice. Well, the farmers used to notice that baby scorpions come out of the rice paddy field. So they assumed that baby scorpions are born from rice. Is that true? No. What they didn't see was the mother scorpion went into the water, underwater, and laid the eggs, and then came out again. They didn't see that. It's an unseen event. All they see is, once a year, they see all these little baby scorpions coming out of the rice paddies. So they assume that scorpions are born of rice paddies. So we see there's always going to be some unseen remote cause. And there's what's called the efficient cause or material cause. Okay, so Prabhupada is explaining that superficially, material nature appears to be the cause of creation, maintenance, and destruction. But material nature is set into motion for creation by the Supreme Conscious Being, the Personality of Godhead. He is the background of all creation, maintenance, and destruction, and this is confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 9.10. Okay? So this verse, 9.10, Maya Dakshina Prakriti, is extremely important verse because it defeats whatever the scientists say, whatever the philosophers say, even Aristotle, even to a certain extent also Socrates, who was the grandfather, guru of Aristotle. Socrates' direct disciple is Plato, and Plato's disciple is Aristotle. So Plato and Aristotle were more or less in sync with each other. They had the same ideas. Aristotle deviated from them, so he became the father of materialistic science. Socrates and Plato were Mayavadis. So they believed in, and there was a type of Mayavadi. They believed that the spiritual world exists, but it's completely static, and it has perfect forms. Whatever we see here are imperfect, let's say, facsimiles of those perfect forms in the spiritual world. But they thought that the spiritual world is static. Nothing moves. It's eternal. So they had some ideas that, they were influenced by the Vedas, but they deviated, or they perverted the Vedic knowledge. And so we see the farther west you go, the more atheistic it becomes, until you end up in San Francisco, which is the most atheistic place, or Hawaii even, So now it goes even further now. It says that material nature is one of the energies of the Lord, and she can work under the direction of the Lord. When the Lord throws his transcendental glance over the material nature, then only can the material nature act as a father contacts the mother, who is then able to conceive a child. So he's giving now a mundane example to understand this transcendental example. But the mundane example is not going to be perfect, but it points to the transcendental point. What is that? That there is some unseen remote cause of the material nature, and that the pradhana, or the material, total material substance, is not the real cause of creation and motion in the material world. It looks like it is, but it's not. And just like it looks like the mother is the cause of the baby, but actually she is not. It's the father who's the cause of the baby, because he gives the seed with all the with the soul. And in another sense, in a bigger sense, even the father is not the cause, because Krishna puts the soul into the, let's say, the sperm of the father. So there are many sperms. A man may produce like 500 million, maybe even 1 billion sperms in a lifetime, depending on the virility of the person, of the male. But do every one of them carry a soul? Theoretically, maybe yes. But only one out of all those is going to connect with the ovum. So, but the point is that the father is the cause of the baby, right? the mother by herself cannot produce a baby. She can nurture the baby and carry the baby and then give birth to the baby, but she is not the real cause. Okay, so in the same way, material nature is not the cause of all the motion and everything that's happening in the material world. It's Krishna who simply glances and then puts into motion everything in the material world. Although it appears to the layman that the mother gives birth to the child, the experienced man knows that the father gives birth to the child. The material nature therefore produces the moving and standing manifestations of the material world. After being contacted by the Supreme Father and not independently. So that's the main point. Without Krishna's glance, nothing would happen in the material world. And a glance is a very, very subtle thing, right? He's not even touching the material nature. He just looks at it. And then by that looking also, he impregnates the material nature with living entities, with souls. And then they're placed according to their previous karma in the different types of bodies that have also been created, or different types of species. So, just like the mother cannot independently produce a child without the father, material nature is completely dependent on Krishna. Considering material nature to be the cause of creation, maintenance, etc., is called the logic of nipples on the neck of a goat. Now, we have some goats at the farm, and they do have these nipples, things that look exactly like a nipple. A nipple is something that the baby goat can suck on and get milk. But the nipples on the neck of a goat will not give you any milk. The nipples on the udder will give you milk, but not on the neck. So, considering material nature to be the cause of creation, maintenance, etc., is called the logic of nipples on the neck of a goat. The Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes the logic of Ajagala Sthana Naya as follows, as explained by His Divine Grace, Sri Srimad Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaja. And this is a brilliant statement. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur says, the material nature as the material cause is known as pradhana, and as efficient cause is known as maya. But since it is inert matter, it is not the remote cause of creation. So, how can the scientists understand this? There's no way they can understand it. Therefore, they don't talk about God. They just talk about matter and motion, right? So, therefore, the material nature as the material cause is known as pradhana. So, pradhana is the unmanifest form of material nature. So there's vyakta and avyakta. So it's the totality of material nature, but it's unmanifest, right? So that is the material cause, and the efficient cause is known as maya. Well, maya moves things, right? Because she's an energy of the Lord, and so the pradhana becomes the mahatattva as soon as the time factor and the modes of material nature influence it. Then it starts moving, but the way it moves, it puts people into illusion. So Maya is controlling it through the modes of material nature. Okay, so now the material nature as the material cause is known as pradhana, and as efficient cause is known as Maya. But since it is inert matter, it is not the remote cause of creation. So by itself, without Maya, material nature is inactive. And when it starts moving because of the glance of Krishna, Maya is controlling it through the modes of material nature. Therefore, people become convinced that there's no God, there's only this body, and therefore the goal of life should be sense gratification. So the material nature as the material cause is known as pradhana, and as efficient cause is known as Maya, but since it is inert matter, it is not the remote cause of creation. So how can we understand the real, let's say, way things are created and maintained and ultimately destroyed? We have to hear from authority. We cannot accept imperfect people as authority, such as Aristotle or Francis Bacon or modern philosophers or modern scientists. They will not be able to explain the truth. So therefore, Krishnadas Goswami has written, Ateva Krishna Mula Jagat Karana, Prakriti Karana, Yaiche Ajagalastana. Because Karana Vasai Vishnu is a plenary expansion of Krishna, it is he who electrifies the matter to put it in motion. The example of electrification is quite appropriate. A piece of iron is certainly not fire, but when the iron is made red hot, certainly it has the quality of fire through its burning capacity. Well, here's an ordinary thing, an iron bar, but it's made into something active by putting it into the fire. In the same way, by Krishna's grants, this inactive or inert matter becomes active. And then he puts Maya in charge of it. And then people engage, like in another few minutes, all of a sudden there's going to be a lot of traffic outside. Right? Like 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock in the morning, there's hardly 1 or 2 cars. But by 7:30, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, there's going to be thousands of cars on 228th Avenue. And people are moving. They're going here, they're going there. Me also, I'm going to go to Arlington today. So things are put into motion, right? And the energy is gasoline, and the energy is, food that we eat. So we see we see these things every day, but we don't understand what is the source of it, unless you hear Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita. You won't understand what the source, and you're not going to get the source from the scientists or what's being taught in schools, because it's not real education, it's phony education. Just like there's real money and monopoly money. So monopoly money is this fool money. It's not the real thing. It's called money, but it's not real. And or a casino coin. You get a casino coin, a chip, right? But you can't buy anything with the chip. It's good only in the casino. So there's a lot of what you call fiat money, money that's being like a Bitcoin. It's another thing that you think it's money only because some people will accept it, but sometimes the price goes up and then it comes down. It goes up and down. It's very let's say precarious type of currency. Okay, so Krishnadas Kaviraj says that because Karanavasai Vishnu is a plenary expansion of Krishna, it is he who electrifies the matter to put it in motion. The example of electrification is quite appropriate. A piece of iron is certainly not fire, but when the iron is made red hot, certainly it has the quality of fire through its burning capacity. Matter is compared to the piece of iron, and it is electrified or made red hot by the glance or manipulation of the supreme consciousness of Vishnu. Only by such electrification is the energy of matter displayed in various actions and reactions. Therefore, the inert matter is neither efficient nor the material cause of the cosmic manifestation. Okay, and then Kapila Muni further says, the original fire, its flame, its sparks, and its smoke are all one. For fire is still fire, yet is different from the flame is different from the sparks, and the sparks are different from the smoke. So you have four things. You have fire, flame, and sparks, and smoke. Now, altogether, it's fire. And then individually, there are aspects of fire. The fire is animating them, right? So in every one of them, namely in the flames, in the sparks, and in the smoke, the integrity of fire is present. Yet all of them are differently situated with different positions. The cosmic manifestation is compared to the smoke, because when smoke passes over the sky, so many forms appear, resembling many known and unknown manifestations. The sparks are compared to living entities, and the flames are compared to material nature, pradhana. One must know that each and every one of them is effective simply because of being empowered by the quality of the original fire. Therefore, all of them, namely the material nature, the cosmic manifestation, and the living entities, are but different energies of the Lord, as compared to fire. Therefore, those who accept the material nature as the cosmic manifestation, as the cosmic manifestation's original cause, Prakriti, the cause of creation, according to Sankhya philosophy, are not correct in their conclusion. So, Aristotle is not correct, Francis Bacon is not correct, and all the modern scientists are not correct. They're all wrong. And philosophers also. The philosophers sometimes they're a little partially right and in a big measure wrong. So this is a dilemma because they're being presented as authorities and they're not actually authorities. So then it says, the material nature has no separate existence without the Lord. Therefore, setting aside the Supreme Lord as the cause of all causes is the logic of Aja Gala Stana Nyaya, or trying to milk the nipples on the neck of a goat. The nipples on the neck of a goat may seem like sources of milk, but to try to get milk from such nipples will be foolish. This is a brilliant purport by Prabhupada, and many wonderful points that we have to take into account. But we should not be misled. Therefore, we should receive our knowledge from Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. We should not depend on the other knowledge because it's just going to waste your time trying to understand those other things. Right? Like up until now, I've never had to refer to Socrates' four kinds of causes. Right? One time I heard one devotee who was a sannyasi in Mayapur, he mentioned the four causes of Aristotle. But nobody understood anything all the audience, all the devotees, they didn't understand anything when he said that. And it almost sounded as if he was saying that these are the real causes of things. So to understand what is the truth, sometimes you have to understand what is not the truth. But you can understand the truth without understanding what is not the truth. See? So when you understand the truth, you can recognize what is not the truth. But it has to be pointed out for most people because we have been taught from the beginning what is not the truth. And when we hear what the truth is, it's hard to assimilate it. See? If you were taught first what is the truth, then every time something deviated from that, you would see that's not the truth. But we were taught first and foremost what is not the truth. Therefore, it's hard to get rid of that concept, right? Okay, so that's why, Prabhupada insists that you don't have to learn any of this mundane stuff. You simply learn Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. Then you will not be misled in life. As far as successfully living, let's say, success, whatever that means in the modern sense, success is at the moment of death you remember Krishna and go back to Godhead. That's real success. But this other concept of success, having money, having gadgets, all that stuff, having prestige, that should not be the priority of a devotee. Devotee's priority is to know the truth and to live the truth. So to be introduced to Krishna, to follow the rules and regulations of Krishna consciousness and function in devotional service, and then eventually develop pure love of Krishna and go back to Godhead. That should be our truth. That should be what we're concerned with. To earn the honest living, you can earn honest living in many, many different ways. If you want to get prepared for that, let's say someone wants to be a grihasta, and that's okay, then you're going to have to work. So if you simply know very expertly English and mathematics, you can get any job, you can pass any test by that. But you have to know mathematics very well, and you have to know English very well. And then as far as history, biology, this thing, that thing, you can easily master them once you're expert in English and math. Mathematics teaches you to think in a very orderly, organized way, and English, you're very good English. You're able to explain things in a comprehensible way, and not be confused by when you read other things, because sometimes they use all these different words, that can confuse you. The English language already is a confused language because it has so many borrowed words and pronunciations and spellings and all that stuff. But anyway, to go even further, to learn Sanskrit, then you would be a top, let's say, thinker, because Sanskrit is a perfect language. Okay, so we'll stop right there. Are there any questions? You can see this is a really important purport. We've gone over it 3-4 times.
So, even though here it's maybe one level describes that the material nature as the material cause is known as pradhananda, as the efficient cause is known as maya. But the real efficient cause is still maya.
The remote cause.
The remote cause. Okay.
The remote cause is Krishna. So, we, just like this, if you look up efficient cause, material cause, efficient cause, you'll see that it's very confusing. If you look it up in the right now, what is material cause, what is efficient cause? And then there's causality in law, there's causality in philosophy, there's causality this way, there's causality that way. It gets really confusing, and they mix the words up, efficient cause and the remote cause, the material cause, the efficient cause. See, Aristotle had 4 causes, right? Bacon's reducing it down to 2. Krishna has 5. So what do you see there?
So it says material cause is the matter or substance which constitutes the thing. So
Okay.
which forms the thing. So that's the material cause. And then the efficient cause is an agent that brings the thing into
Okay? So, let's say, look at Aristotle, he says, well, the, he says material matter, or material nature, and then he says some design, and then he says the carpenter who builds the table, right? And then he says the final result is you sit down and you eat your food on the table, right? That was the purpose. Now, the Greeks also talked about teleology. Teleology is another complicated concept. The Greeks were great thinkers, but they end up being stinkers because they left a lot out. So teleology, what is that? Teleology is the idea that there's a natural, let's say, force in nature that strives to achieve a certain perfection, a certain goal. Now, that is a phony idea. Nature by itself cannot seek some goal. In other words, organize itself to be a table, or organize itself to be a human being, or organize itself to be a genius. But that concept was originally thought of by the Greeks, Greek philosophers. So, and even the modern evolutionists, they also have sort of accepted this idea of that nature has this self-perfecting goal to achieve something in the end, right? There's no such, I mean, nature is inert matter. How can it have such thinking and organizing qualities, you see? And then the evolutionists, they have a problem because they use language that implies the teleological, let's say, outcome of evolution. But on the other hand, they say everything's happening by accident. So, therefore, they have to purify their statements so that no one thinks that nature has this self-perfecting tendency to it. It all has to happen by accident, by combinations and mutations and this thing and that thing. So you see that the modern evolutionists are, they realize that they can't say that nature has a self-perfecting tendency to it, because that would seem like there's some religious aspect to it. There's some superior intelligence or controller. So they have to be very careful. They have to sanitize all their sentences so that a person doesn't feel as if there is some driving force of nature, organized driving force of nature. It has to all be by accident. So you see how there are many what we would call anomalies in modern science. Because when they start off with a false premise, they always, but the tendency is to come to the premise that everything is intelligence driven, right? Because everything they're doing is intelligence driven, right? So they have to be very careful and sanitize the language of their explanations so that that idea that there's some organizing person behind everything is eliminated. See, they got a big problem. They got a big problem. Any other questions?
Just to repeat on, Krishna has explained the causes. These are material cause, efficient cause, remote cause. Anything else?
No, he says there's 5 causes.
5 causes.
There's the place, which is the body. There's the person, who's the doer. There are the senses, which are the instruments to do things. Then there's the endeavor itself, or the work itself, and then there's Krishna. So most people will take 1, 2, 3, 4 into account. Usually they, just like I was talking to this one devotee, we were talking about some issue, and he was saying, well, so and so says this, and so says that, and if this happens, and that may happen. And so I said, listen, Prabhu, ultimately there's 5 causes to every action, and the 5th cause is Krishna. Oh, you're trying to say that I'm not talking about Krishna? I said, no, but I said, you didn't mention Krishna at all. I said, ultimately Krishna is going to decide what's going to happen, right? So you have to have that faith. That's the faith of a devotee. So he realized that all the explanations he was giving me, he kept Krishna out of it. Right? And I mentioned that, and then he got, he got a little bit of a paranoid there. He said, oh, you mean I didn't mention Krishna? Well, we have to mention Krishna because he's the ultimate cause. And so in any endeavor, there's going to be, this question is, how is this happening? Why is it happening? What is it going to end up to be? Who's going to make the final decision? Blah, blah, blah. But ultimately, it's Krishna. And everybody keeps Krishna out of the equation. Therefore, they never get to any solid conclusion. Okay. All right, we'll stop right there. Thank you very much. Sorry, it went a little longer. 7:23. Okay. Hare Krishna. You see how there's so many great thinkers who are actually stinkers. They're not that great, but they look great, and the way they use language and everything, you get confused because you think, oh, they must know what they're talking about,
Sri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Shri Guru Charana Padma Kevala Bhakati Sadma
Mandamoyi Savadana Mate
Mandamoyi Savadana Mate
Jahara Prasade Bhai E Bhava Turiya Jai
Janara Prasade Bhai E Bhava Turiya Jai
Krishna Prapti Hoy Jahan Hoy De Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Kuriya Gya
Guru Mukha Padma Vakya Chitte Te Kuriya Gya
Arana Kori Ho Mane Asha
Arana Koriya Mane Asa
श्री गुरु चराणे रति ऐसे उत्तम गति
श्री गुरु चराने रति ऐसे उत्तम गति
जय प्रसादे पूरे सर्वा आशा
ये प्रसादे पूरे सर्व आशा
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिला जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिलो जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
चक्षुदान दिला जय जन्मे जन्मे प्रभु से
दिव्य ज्ञान हृदय प्रकाशितो
दिव्य ज्ञान दे प्रकाशित
प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते
भक्ति जाते अविद्या विनाश जाते
प्रेमा भक्ति जहाँ होते अविद्या विनाशा जाते
भक्ति चाहते अविद्या विनाश जाते
वेदे गाय जहाँ राचरितो
वेदे गाय चंदर चरितो
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आधाम जनरा बंधु
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु जनर बंधु
श्री गुरु करुणा सिंधु आधाम जनरा बंधु
गुरु करुणा सिंधु जनर बंधु
लोकना लोके राजीवाना हाँ प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया
हाँ प्रभु दया देह मोरे पद छाया
हाँ प्रभु करो दया देहो मोरे पद छाया
हाँ प्रभु दया देह मोरे पद छाया
ये बेजास घुस त्रिभुवना प्रभुपाद पतित पवना जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद
जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद
जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव जय गुरुदेव
प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद जय प्रभुपद
नमो विष्णुपदाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामी इति नामिने कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले सरस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे
नमस्ते सरस्वती देवी गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यादेशतारिणे
जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद
श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद
हरे कृष्ण हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम हरे राम 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 हरे हरे
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Jaya Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada
Nitai Gaura Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo.
Haribo, 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 Nitai Gaura Haribo. Jayam Vishnupad, Paramahansa, Paravajagachas, Tatara Satara, Shrimad, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Goswami Maharaj, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Ki Jai, Namacharya Sri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai, Prem Se Golo Krishna, Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasudeva Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai, Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Samkunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapura Dham Ki Jai, Shri Jagannath Puri Dham Ki Jai, Shri Tulasi Devi Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Ganga Maya Ki Jai, Jamuna Maya Ki Jai, Samveda Bhaktivinda Ki Jai, Nitai Gaura Premanandi. All glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled devotees, all glories to assembled, all glories to Shri Guru and Shri Guru, all glories to Srila Prabhupada, Patita Pavani Ki Jai. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Namaste Saraswati Devi. Shri Krishna Chaitanya. Hare Krishna. The lotus feet of our spiritual master, by which I bow down to his by his grace one can cross the ocean of material suffering and obtain the mercy of Krishna. My only wish is to have my consciousness purified by the words emanating from his lotus mouth. Attachment to his lotus feet is the perfection of fulfills all desires.
He opens my darkened eyes and fills my heart with transcendental knowledge. He is my Lord, birth after birth. From him ecstatic prema emanates, by him ignorance is destroyed. The Vedic scriptures sing of his character. Our spiritual master, the ocean of mercy, the friend of the poor and the Lord and master of the devotees. O Master, be merciful to me. Give the shade of your lotus with pure fame. All of the devotees, we take the shade.